We were always told, we have been told, that Venezuela is a third world country and that they're very backwards and that they hate America. And this rhetoric has toned down quite a bit now that Hugo Chavez has been eliminated, and a lot of people think that he was poisoned, he was given cancer, and we'll get into that a little bit towards the end of this video. But I want people to see that actually the reason why Venezuela was so vilified was in fact because they were working for the betterment of their own people, their people. And they had a government that was trying to make life easier for the people who live there, unlike our government, which is attempting to make our lives as difficult as is humanly possible and to nickel and dime us every chance they get. The first example I'm going to show people, it might be surprising to a lot of people, but this example, it's common. This was common life in Venezuela. The video is from 2011, back when Chavez was still in power, and it's a very interesting video for a couple of reasons here. The first being that Caracas actually looks like a pretty nice city. The streets are pretty good. They're just as good as most American cities. You go to downtown Detroit, this looks like a freaking paradise. Secondly, you'll notice that the cars are actually pretty new. There's a lot of old cars, but there's a reason for that, and we'll get to that in just a second. But the main thing to notice here are the traffic lights. And if you look, you can see that the traffic lights have a countdown for red, yellow, and green. What this does, it's actually manyfold. First, it makes things a lot safer because you know how much time you have, and you can slow down or just not speed accordingly. Secondly, it probably helps people increase gas efficiency, fuel efficiency, because they're not speeding up or slowing down in an attempt to make a light or slamming on the brakes. When you could just slow down and then let the light change and save your momentum. But third, and perhaps most importantly, this decreases the amount of stress for the driver substantially. If you knew the amount of time that was left at a light, you could look away, you could relax, you could enjoy your life, and if you knew how much time was left on the green, you wouldn't stress about that light changing, and it makes things just so much more enjoyable and simple and is the way it should be. If this alleged third world country is able to put these countdowns at their stoplights, why can't American cities do this? It's such an obvious and such a good idea. That what American cities are doing simultaneously is, at the same time that Venezuela installed these, is they were shortening the yellow light times at stoplights in order to get more people to run red lights. So that is kind of like that's kind of just in a nutshell what's going on here. In America, we're getting nickel and dimed, and we're getting our revenue generator police force out there bothering hardworking people who are trying to get to work or do whatever it is they're doing, get their groceries. And they're shortening yellow light times in order to make sure people run red lights. Not only is this very dangerous, it's immoral, and you would think that our government wouldn't be stooping to that level.
Some yellow lights are too short. We found that was the case in Hernando County.
So we decided to investigate other intersections throughout the Bay Area, and you won't believe what we found. Proof of intentionally shortening the length of yellow lights, and that of course creates more tickets.
But half a second is much more significant when you're behind the wheel and the light turns red too fast. The amount of that half second cost Floridians $50 million last year. Or in the case of Shirley Nagel from Port Richey, $158.
I never thought of such a thing, that I was doing anything wrong.
Caught by one of US 19's red light cameras this spring. where less than half a second made the difference in going about her Sunday afternoon and having to empty out her wallet. Doubt local cities, counties, and the state are taking advantage of shorter yellow lights to ticket more drivers. In some instances, twice as many.
It's terrible. I think they're cheating the people.
But 10 News found out that the Florida Department of Transportation erased those three little words in 2011. That meant shorter yellow lights and more tickets for you. It appears it's a move designed to create more citations.
Not correct. Not correct.
FDOT's traffic operations engineer Mark Wilson says his agency would have no motivation to try and trap motorists. But the state of Florida nets $83 on every $158 citation. The rest is split between cities, counties, and the camera company. Last year, red light cameras in Florida generated more than $100 million in revenue, half of it from those shorter yellow lights.
It's not every municipality, but it's many of them. And if these countdown timers were in more U.S. cities, things would be safer, traffic would run smoother, people would be less stressed out. It makes sense on so many levels. And it's embarrassing that we don't have this going on. So, and the other thing is, I said there's a lot of new cars, and there are a lot of new cars driving around Caracas. This was 2011, like I said. But the other interesting thing is, there's a lot of gas guzzlers. And that is because people can still afford to drive those. And if you actually know about carbon dioxide, it's not as bad as people made it out to be. You know, gasoline, there's some toxic stuff, so maybe it's not a good thing. But as far as economics go and taking care of the poor, it's a very good thing. Because the reason there are so many gas guzzlers is because at this point in time, gas... at this point in time, there's a cop probably pulling somebody over outside. Gas was 7 cents a gallon in Venezuela. 7 cents a gallon. I don't know how much it is where you are, but down the street today it was $4.03, I believe. So let's do some quick math here on the calculator. 403 divided by 7 equals 57.5 times more expensive. The gas we are paying for is 57.5 times more expensive than what they were getting in Venezuela when Hugo Chavez was in power, just a few years ago before he died of cancer. And they say, of course, it was subsidized, but they say Venezuela produces oil, which it does, but so do we. The U.S. is actually one of the largest oil producers in the whole country now. In the whole world now. So there is no excuse that our gas prices should be so expensive, 57.5 times more expensive than Venezuela. On a side note, another country that had extremely cheap gas was Libya. And we all know what happened to Gaddafi. He was taken out. He was also planning a gold dinar currency to rival the U.S. petrodollar. But isn't it interesting that all of these countries that have very cheap gas get invaded time and time again, and not only that, their leaders are vilified as dictators when all they're trying to do. Gaddafi raised his people out of poverty in just a few generations and became one of the richest countries in all of Africa, and had free health care. He gave out money if you wanted to start farming. And Chavez was also a populist, as the gas prices show. 7 cents a gallon, it shows that you care about your people. You're willing to take a financial loss domestically, but he wasn't willing to sell cheap gas to America, so that's another reason why he had to be taken out. So it's not only this. There's a lot of interesting conspiracy theories that Chavez had, which made him a prime target to be removed from power. And this is the reason why Venezuela was vilified so much. It's not only these attempts at making life easier for their people, something that all governments should be doing, but most don't, especially ours, which tries to make our lives as difficult as humanly possible, but also attempting to actually tell their population the truth about what was going on in the world, telling their people that there was actually earthquake machines that could make earthquakes. Chavez accused the earthquake in Haiti of being a U.S. Conspiracy, and he probably was right if you look at the HAARP readings during that time. And then Chavez also claimed 9/11 was an inside job, just like the president of Iran, Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, claimed. So isn't it funny that everybody who speaks the truth gets assassinated or gets called a dictator? Ahmadinejad and Gaddafi both claimed that 9/11 was an inside job, and so did Chavez. Chavez also brought up the point that many of the anti-American leaders in South America got cancer at roughly the exact same time. And if you understand, cancer is one of those things that's actually, there's a lot of environmental factors, and it really wouldn't be that much of a leap of the imagination or a stretch that the military-industrial complex, medical-industrial complex know how to induce cancer. It's not that hard. They know all the factors that create cancer and all the carcinogens that are out there. So all it would take was just maybe some sort of a remote method, or just get something into his food, and he has cancer. So we're going to look at a few of these conspiracy theories, and just take a look at Venezuela, and take a look at the general trends that are used, or trends to look for, in when somebody is called a dictator, and that happens to be low oil prices given to their population, an attempt at some sort of a health care for the poor, and generally not raping your population in the ass.
And also, you went to visit Hugo Chavez, the president of Venezuela, recently. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, I went to visit. I went to write about Venezuela and Chavez, yeah.
And what was your interest in Hugo Chavez?
Well, I felt almost invited to go by Pat Robertson when he was encouraging the assassination of Chavez, because I always can assume that whatever he says, it ought to be the opposite.
I see.
So.
And to me, my impression of the guy, from what I hear and what I read and what people tell me, is that he's nuts. Hugo Chavez is wacky and kind of entertaining, but we ought to keep our eye on him. What was your impression of the guy?
Well, I think if people have oil under their ground, they're called wacky. Yeah. I found him very fascinating guy. Very, he's done, for the moment, incredible things for the 80% of the people that are very poor there. But a fascinating character, somebody I'm writing about. And,
yeah. But isn't he talking about nationalizing the media? Then that always makes me a little concerned when somebody's talking about doing that.
Well, one of the things that's been said about him is that he shut down a television station. What happened is that since 1998, they had been encouraging the assassination of Chavez every day on that channel, something that they would have gone to prison for here. And so he just didn't re-up that license. But meanwhile, the idea that there's no freedom of expression, I mean, the loons on Fox News are broadcast there every day. So.
Yeah, different perspectives.
A Fox producer caught up to President Chavez. Apparently Chavez doesn't like Fox too much.
Sir, I have no time. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I'll be quick. One quick question. Many people are very confused about your friendship with President Ahmadinejad because he denies the Holocaust, one of the horrors of the 20th century.
Where do you come from?
I work for Fox News.
Fox News, President. Fox.
Hello, sir.
Me río de Fox News.
I love when I see people from
¿Sabe cómo lo llamó Sean Penn?
Sean Penn. How Sean Penn
Sean Penn dijo los estúpidos de Fox News.
The stupid people from Fox News. That's the way they call you.
Not tú.
Not you, of course, not you. Of course not. Fox News.
Tu pregunta, tu elaboración es artificiosa.
It's artificious.
Tu mente tiene ahí confusiones.
Has many confusions.
Turning now to Latin America, well, it's nothing new to say that the president of Venezuela is no friend of the United States, particularly the Bush administration. Hugo Chavez leading a crusade against U.S. dominance of Latin America for the past several years. But just after the 5th anniversary of the September 11th attacks, well, he's added a bit of fuel to the fire.
La hipótesis que cobra fuerza The hypothesis that is gaining strength, which was said on television last night and which could soon blow up, is that it was the same U.S. imperial power that planned and carried out this terrible terrorist attack or act against its own people and against citizens from all over the world.